Hello and welcome to the Playing Arts Podcast, where we put the spotlight on artists in our community. I'm your host, Andy Needham, and this week I'm joined by Ryan Hawthorne, creator of the 8 of Clubs in the Playing Arts Crypto Edition. Ryan is a multidisciplinary digital artist with a background in visual effects, motion graphics, and large-scale physical installations. Ryan's work explores futuristic styles and scenes focusing on technology, light, and geometric forms. So, welcome, Ryan. There you are. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for bringing me on, Andy. This is going to be hopefully a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tell me how it all started for you. Like, how long have you been a digital artist for?
Yeah, I mean, rolling back in the archives. So I'm self-taught. I got into digital art really as an extension of through music. I used to, like, when I was in high school, really since I was like 12, I'd play guitar, and then like I got like a Korg 888 when I was probably like in late middle school. Did some recording classes in high school, and then after college, like late college, and then like the first year after college, I kind of started getting back into like Pro Tools and Ableton, etc. And that is when I kind of found People's VJ Loops, and I was like, whoa, what is this cool kind of like, what is this cool software program? You know, I never really thought about playing around too much in 3D. It always seemed like super complicated, you know, like from just an outsider looking in. But I was able to see some of those scene files. I ended up getting a crack of Cinema 4D when like they were like easy to get back in the day. And yeah, really just started exploring kind of that. And this was back in like late 2012, start of 2013. And then that led to like Grayscale Gorilla and all that kind of stuff. And I would kind of like, I was like working some odd jobs straight out of college. I worked at like a lumberyard. I was like a baseball umpire, just random stuff to pay the bills. And before I would do all this stuff, I'd go to like a coffee shop and teach myself tutorials. And before I knew it, I had like a small kind of personal portfolio. Mm-hmm. And I ended up taking that to New York, where I also just totally didn't know what I was doing, but was like, hey, I'm going to go chase this kind of creative career out in New York. I had enough money saved up to kind of float me for 3-4 months. And then pretty much when I landed, I sent out an application to a studio called The Mill, just for like an entry-level runner position. And started. So then I did that kind of grind for a little less than about a year. Got my first couple credits, which is kind of crazy, going from self-taught to getting kind of like broadcast TV credits within a year, which is kind of like nutty. And then worked at a smaller studio where I got like a lot more freedom and also a lot more kind of responsibility. Kind of started off as like a junior, quickly went to like a mid-level kind of designer, and then kind of like sometimes a lead role.
Jail? The art jail? Yeah.
Art jail, yeah. Art jail and they were great to me. Small studio, very different than The Mill. Same people though. Also, like from a business sense, it was really nice because like I got to see how both like a large scale kind of VFX house operated and a smaller scale. And the smaller scale is much more transparent into like the business workings of the VFX and film industry, where I think at a bigger studio, it's much more kind of guarded. You don't really know how the money's made or what costs what or who's getting paid what. And I think like that was also really empowering for me as an artist, just to kind of like understand the lay of the land. And then also like The Mill was much more business kind of focused, I think, where RJL was founded by an artist. So if there wasn't work, I didn't have to pretend like I wasn't doing work. And that's actually where I started doing a lot more like of my personal experiments that I would post on Instagram, and actually like led me to doing what I do now in the NFT space, you know, like, so like there was a very like, if it wasn't for that creative freedom of like feeling like I had to do something for the company and I couldn't just explore creatively, I don't know if I would have progressed in my own artistic kind of abilities or sensibilities as fast. And that work actually ended up getting me my next job at Tool of North America, doing experiential designs for like large conferences. I did like CES, like an Intel thing at CES, did the Dome at Coachella, did San Diego Comic-Con, did all these things. And that was really the reason why I got those jobs was because of my personal work. I mean, that's really been the throughput thread of pretty much every job that I've gotten. Up until kind of I had like a base portfolio from that and going freelance. But like before that, like every job that I got was because of my personal work. And that's kind of crazy that now we're at this point in the digital art space where your personal work doesn't just get you jobs, it actually gets you collectors, and it actually gets you an income, and actually gets you like a career. And so it's crazy kind of full circle moment that I'm realizing talking about it. So yeah, I mean, it's hell of an opportunity.
That is awesome. And I mean, you know, they say that if you're kind of creating the work that you want to do, you know, then that kind of attracts those jobs and those kind of things. So it's really cool though that a studio would allow you to just have that self-development time. And for them, you know, it's a smart move, because they're like, well, you're still, you know, bettering yourself, and that will then better the company as well in a way. So, but yeah, it's great that all this stuff has led to you, led to the, you know, where you are in the NFT space and all that. But while you were doing these personal projects, were you doing every days or anything like that? You're obviously influenced by people to begin with, and was that another part of it, another side?
Yeah, I mean, I was never fully able to do every days. You know, I mean, I think a lot of that was me trying to juggle work. You know, so like when work would get really busy, like then I would kind of go offline for a little bit. When stuff kind of slowed up a little bit, you would see that trend back. I think there definitely was somewhat of like an everyday-esque mentality, especially like early on. And then I started to switch it off into more of like, I would do like kind of small series. And so I think like that started with did like this kind of like painted displacement on like the like the default kind of like models, base mesh models that you get in Cinema 4D. And that was cool too, because like that was before like Mixamo and all this stuff was like a big thing. So like I actually had to learn how to rig a model and kind of pose it and whatnot. Yeah. But yeah, so that was kind of like an early one. If you go way back to the bottom of my Instagram, you'll see some of those.
Let's do that.
Actually, that's a good. Bottom of the Instagram. There we are. So this stuff was kind of more of like the everyday, I would say, kind of like era. Yes. And yeah, so like so a lot of that was just kind of like experiments, mixing 3D and 2D, and just really kind of getting the reins of Cinema 4D, and also like playing with color, composition, really trying to crank settings. Yeah.
I want to say, like, I think, you know, this piece here is, you know, it may seem like really simple and straightforward, like, you know, but you've taken it into a different direction with the texture, you know, and it just feels, you know, more designed and more considered. So I think that's a kind of like a, you know, there's a real strong design aesthetic in your work. And we see that definitely in the simpler times, and, you know, we'll get to those things as well. But sorry, yeah, please continue. I mean, we've got.
No, yeah, I mean, it's interesting, like looking back at this kind of stuff. Yeah, I got to learn a lot of 3D, and then kind of like see that like these initial painty guys, like that was like kind of like I think I archived some of those, but like yeah, that one that you're having over. This was kind of like when I first was like, all right, like maybe I'm going to switch it up from doing kind of these everyday experiments and trying to do like a short mini series, you know. And this is something you interestingly see a lot now in the NFT space. People do like collections, or people do kind of one aesthetic that drives it. So I thought like this was kind of like my intro into kind of doing like stuff that wasn't just kind of like geometric design composition experiments, but like what if I like actually take like a throughput, like use that kind of paint texture displacement technique apply it to models, which at the time, this was back in, what is this, 2016? Like, it wasn't really been done that much. I mean, like, now you started to see people do it, like, more and more and more and more and more. But back in 2016, like, there wasn't a whole ton of that. Like, Rick Ossenberg was doing, kind of like pioneered it to like the main stage, but that was mostly like spheres and mostly like, and then sometimes like other objects. So I just kind of expanded that out to like people and did like a mini series, I think of like 6 or 7 of these. None of which I've minted. I haven't minted any of these. And yeah, so that was kind of like my first exploration into that, kind of doing stuff in a series, and then back to the everydays.
Yeah.
As you can see.
It's interesting that, so this is, you're using displacement to get this effect. Did you ever consider like just going in and sculpting? And was that just something that you weren't even thinking of back in 2016?
Yeah, I wasn't really like fully thinking about it. I mean, these were all kind of like, I think there was a little bit of sculpting done to all these kind of base meshes, just because like these were like the base meshes, and the way that like the displacer displaced on top of it, you would kind of want to sculpt some stuff out so you wouldn't get like crazy overlaps and stuff. But I was never like, I wouldn't really consider myself like a crazy sculptor dude. Like, know enough to play with it, but displacement just did its thing, and it was fun. This was really more of like me learning how to rig models, because this was kind of like before the Mixamo craze, and so you had to like kind of go and do it by hand, and pose everything by hand. So like that was a cool learning from that series.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And it looks like you get into particles and things like that with these pieces.
X-particle world.
Yeah.
I mean, you see a lot of that kind of stuff, and and my kind of like commercial work did a lot of like X-particles kind of stuff, and those were cool. Those were the render Arnold. They took forever. Just the Mac Pro desktop.
Yeah.
It took like 14 hours to render.
So this is kind of interesting. This is kind of interesting because you have these abstract landscapes and stuff in a lot of your work, and so that's kind of this. These are coming in now to. So are you just taking a photo here and just kind of manipulating it?
Yeah, I just went through a stage like where I was younger, and like I was just like kind of like experimenting of like, you would see trends, like Instagram kind of trends. And I think this was kind of one of them, like these design trends. And it's like, oh, how do we do that? Like let me see like what my take is on this, in kind of, just an exercise in composition, photo manipulation, just almost like album art design, you know what I mean? So like a lot of, and that's almost 100% like what this time period was for me. Like it was a lot of trying to play around with like, oh, what can I do in 2D, like collage art, kind of compositional stuff. I think a lot of this was like Slime Sunday inspired, but a bunch of people, kind of like everybody would hop on trends. I felt like back in the like 2016, early 2017 days of Instagram, and just on that for a couple weeks, a month or so, and
yeah. I mean, you acquired like a ridiculous amount of followers, and it's like 16K or something on Instagram, I think, and probably more. But I mean, did you notice? Has that been since NFTs, or has that always kind of been a steady growth?
It's been, well, it was like a quick growth up to like 5K. I think like kind of. And really like from like start of 2017, like halfway through 2017, was a quick growth up to that. And then honestly, then it just laid stagnant. And I think a big reason why is because instead of chasing that Instagram momentum, I just got my job at Tool at that point in time. So I was like, I'm going to do these kind of commercial portfolio projects, and try to get like kind of almost build up more of like the Behance kind of realm of things, where like hopefully you get some of those badges, and like that's a different kind of realm, I think. So I kind of consciously put the Instagram like social media following thing a little bit on the back burner. Like love that, like I got to 5K, and back in 2017, 5K seemed like a lot, especially because it was a strong pound for pound. I felt like design community 5K, but yeah, and then. I really didn't start engaging back onto Instagram like consistently until I ended up going freelance. back a year and a half ago. So like back June of last year. And wow. that's kind of when all of a sudden, like as a freelancer, that kind of like your marketing presence means a lot, because you get more clients and kind of just get out there more. So I started using that as like social media more as a marketing tool again. And then, kind of got up to 10K pretty quickly, and then another 7K this year. So a lot of that up to 10K was marketing through freelance and trying to get like ventures kind of blew up when I first started doing ventures. Yes. Just the algorithms loved it. And then, really after like that, most of this year, I feel like is a lot of NFT traction. So probably like from 12K to like 17K, like that group is mostly NFT folk, or I don't know. Actually, I don't really know.
Yeah. It just coincides with the time that you've been doing it, I guess. But what prompted the move then to go from like the stable job to back to freelance?
I mean, it was really a COVID thing, like we were doing big events and events shut down, and
well, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Yeah. We tried to stay afloat for a little bit. The company did stay afloat, but like all of our salaries either had to get significantly cut or we had to do something else. And actually like got really lucky because switching back from events to kind of motion graphics, visual effects kind of stuff, like that was the only type of jobs really around in COVID. So like I was just like constantly booked. I'm sure a lot of other motion graphics artists kind of were in the same boat. Because it was the only kind of like COVID safe production kind of thing. So ended up being like, it was scary at the time. And I think everybody who makes that leap into freelance feels the same way. But I mean, it ended up being super, super beneficial to me in a lot of ways, financially, kind of technically, skill wise. Exposure to different studios, and honestly that's also what like a lot of ventures is about too. Like that's like the kind of the whole origin story of ventures was taking that leap into freelance.
That's it. And I mean we can jump over to there as well. I think I was going to talk about I don't know, I kind of wanted to touch on that thing that you said about some of your earlier pieces then becoming NFTs. And I know was ventures in was that so that was that's a more recent thing, right? If we're looking at your, let's go back to your Instagram, because I can see as I was scrolling up, I saw these and these became gestures, didn't they? So
yep. Yeah, I like what was great about just kind of my workflow and style, like going kind of like way back was like, I again try to do stuff in these mini series. Like I kind of I had this vision like that maybe like digital artists could kind of act in the space less like everyday artists, but more like artists in the traditional kind of realm, and do these kind of series and kind of do these little collections. This was kind of one of them. This was really the first Instagram kind of series that got traction too. And then my first Behance badge too was this, and I mean you see them a lot on Pinterest and stuff too, which is kind of interesting. So like this was kind of I don't know, it was kind of like I was using a Wacom tablet all the time at this point in time, and it was kind of like, oh, like our hands are like these crazy creative tools. What if we take like all these kind of like gestures, or like some of them are scans, some of them are just modified models, but and just kind of break them apart into like their own like pose and frame and setting. And that was when Veroni Fracture, if you guys are familiar, it was brand new. So I was like, what do I do with this new tool?
I wondered if that was. I was going to ask you about like what was the decision to break the hand into pieces, but it's Veroni Fracture is a lot of fun to play with. So, but I mean, was there another kind of reasoning behind that, or was it just let's just do something cool with this tool?
I think it was mostly cool with the tool, but also coloring, texture, and composition. Like it just added like a different level of just kind of design elements that you can play with, like splitting the hand into different pieces and how that can kind of interact with kind of the background and how that leads your eye around the scene. That there wasn't really any deep kind of metaphorical meaning or anything like that. It was more just how do we enhance the design element up on this? And like, I mean, literally this is when Fracture was brand new, like just released. And it was like, okay, like here's this new tool. How can I apply this on something that's not a sphere, you know? And,
yes.
And yeah.
No, it's really cool. I love, I think my favorite is this one here. And I just wanted to, you know, there's a consistency between the, you know, we see the sort of speckled sort of texture. There's a kind of concrete look as well. And obviously the elements that you're using to kind of enhance the pose and lead the eye around the image. But what was your thought process for the color palette of each piece?
Oh, I mean, well, nostalgia and narcotics, it kind of just came in the same thing as kind of like, I think there was a huge nostalgia design fad. So this definitely came from early 90s, late 80s kind of color palette. So I sampled kind of directly from that on this one. I don't know it was a couple years back. I don't remember exactly where the idea came from, but that was definitely one of those design trends that was super prevalent. And I thought would work really, really well. I think like on a lot of my pieces, and I think almost definitely on some of the other color palettes, a lot of I sample from kind of fashion a lot sometimes. So a lot of these come from Nike shoes, like Nike shoe palettes.
Okay.
And that's kind of like a lot of my art style likes to do that. Like I like to pick and choose, you know, like I like to be an art director. I like to be like, this looks cool. How do I make this my own and grab from all these different places? Kind of like that great artist steal kind of mentality a little bit, like where it's like, I don't need to invent the wheel, you know, I think. And, so I do that sometimes. I do that with a lot of work. Sometimes same thing, like I'll kind of do what I consider like a soft focus. There's like hard focus where you're like really intent and like really try to dial something in. But then like soft focus is like you're kind of scrolling, you're not crazy intent, and you're just seeing like what catches your eye, like what just catches your eye without like paying attention to it too much. And then like when you find that, go for it, save it on a tab. And then like after like it takes longer than you think. Like after like 2 hours or so, like I'll probably have like 6 selects of color palettes, and then try those out on my scene. Just go with whatever vibes. And then, but sometimes it's thought out. Sometimes I know what color I want to work with going in, but a lot of times I go through like this exploration of different.
I think we'll come back to color soon. That's cool. And so, I mean, this is presumably like you remastered these, you know, for the NFT rather, you know, because they came from Instagram, and these are like, you know, 4,800 by 6,000 pixels. I was gonna say, like, as a motion designer, you know, weren't you tempted to do these as animations? But obviously, probably not at that resolution.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it's like I like stills. I like high fidelity. I'm a little like, I don't animate much in the NFT space. I'm still trying to figure out like exactly what I'd want those animations to look with. Like, I mean, for me, like I don't love cuts and like what cuts kind of come together at like a motion graphics edit. Like that's just not like an aesthetic in the NFT space that I like. But I also don't want to just make like, I also don't want to just like have like, oh, here's an object, it's rotating animation, so complicated, you know, like sometimes that honestly works great, you know, but I think there's a part of me that's just like, if it doesn't need to animate, I'm not going to force animation into it. And yeah, I like really high fidelity. If I'll go for a higher fidelity still over a lower fidelity animation. And part of me thinks of like, well, what I want to have on my wall in time. Like would I rather have like a big like 6K image that emits light off of a wall, or would I rather have like a really small kind of image that it doesn't age as well, you know? So that's part of my thought there. But I mean, to each their own. And I definitely do plan on animating a little bit more, but I just need to figure out like what I really want to get out of that, or what I want it to look like.
That's cool. You're not just doing it for the sake of it. It's considered. So awesome.
Totally.
I mean, with Ventures, this is a series that you have on Maker's Place, but it's also a much larger collection on OpenSea as well. What came first? Was it did you put it up on here?
Yeah.
Because there's different parts to this series. Do you want to just speak a little bit about the series in broad terms?
Yeah. So Ventures is kind of started probably June 20, I think, or maybe even late May 2020, pretty much right when I started my freelance career. So it's kind of about that taking the leap into the digital unknown. That's why it feels very, very like digital. You see these little tiny dudes in these vast kind of like scenic scapes.
Yes.
A lot of like, there's kind of a lot of this kind of like journey destination kind of mentality. So that's like you'll have these kind of cave scenes that are your destination, and then journey scenes are portals. So it's kind of like does this kind of like kind of consistent journey of you keep on pushing deeper into what you find, like, and what are you going to find next kind of world as I build it out more and more. So it's kind of that. Yeah, I mean, it's really like, and it was really inspired by a lot of classic films. You know, I like to try to make things that sometimes feel kind of 2D, but actually make them out in 3D. So I was watching a lot of like older sci-fi stuff. So like 2001: A Space Odyssey, like the original kind of Star Wars, and looking at all those kind of like what now kind of falls into that lo-fi digital kind of like design trend, which is very like 2D and kind of After Effectsy. And it's like, I want to throw this into like legitimate 3D and this kind of like moves around space, you know. And what was cool about that, you see a lot of like perspective tricks or stuff like that. And it's like, oh, how do you can actually like very contextually make this into a 3D environment. And yeah, so it's kind of like a lot of the background of Ventures. And yeah, it goes in different phases. You know, I tend to go on runs with it, and that's kind of what I break it into, like Ventures 1, Ventures 2, Ventures 3, etc. And yeah, so a lot of what's on Maker's Place is the first iteration of that, but not exactly. Like some of them come from Ventures 2. But for me, Ventures as a series is platform agnostic, and kind of like, because it's so long and extended, it's really like built to kind of last as the space evolves, you know. So like I've been doing this kind of like phase drop mentality where there will be 101 editions across the web. The first 27 were on Maker's Place. That includes an edition of 10. So there's 17 works, but one was an edition of 10. And then we moved over to OpenSea because honestly, it just felt like a better place to have a collection, you know, like, and that's also part of Ventures. You know, it's not staying stuck in one place. You know, it's having the freedom to explore and to evolve and to move around. So it moved to OpenSea, went from a mint of I think 24, then down to like 16, 10, and kind of have this kind of like this every drop has less and less and less, and kind of planning to extend out over time. And even though like most of the series right now is on OpenSea, that doesn't mean that it will end on OpenSea. You know, I really wanted to give myself the freedom, and I wrote that out on like this PDF, like kind of that I did and would send out. Pretty much do it every time I do a drop. That clearly states like this series is meant to be platform agnostic and involved with like the NFT space as we progress with it. You know, because back in February when I first started minting Ventures on the blockchain, like OpenSea wasn't really that prominent of the space. You know, that was really more of the curated platform era. You know, and I think OpenSea was the perfect place for the series to continue. Really, to be honest, like, and I think as creators, like, it's good to give yourself a little bit of freedom to mix it up, because like the landscape of tomorrow is not going to be the landscape of today. You know, and I think if you stress too much about that as a creator, you're just adding additional friction to your workflow, to your NFT career, et cetera. You just kind of, I think a lot of the space moves really fast, and you have to be able to flow and adapt with it. And so that was the reason for the switch. And yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. There's only 16 left to be minted, and I'm trying to figure out what exactly to do with that. I think the next 6 will be on the OpenSea collection, and then I might do like a a custom contract kind of route and kind of make you have to acquire one of the existing editions to be able to purchase the final editions. And I want to make all those grails, to be honest. Like once we get into like the top 10, I want to spend a lot of time on those. And because the series is super, super personal to me, obviously. And yeah, I want to move into like animating some of these and just want to make sure like they're the best that they can be, because like some of the other series, like I'm an artist that likes to put stuff to bed, like you saw Gestures, like put that series to bed, like I Ventures will be put to bed at some point and I'll move on to something else, and that doesn't necessarily mean that there won't be any more Ventures ever. There'll just be no more left to purchase, So yeah, and as a creator, I like to do that. I mean, and for the whole audience that's been on here, you've probably seen me mix a bunch of different styles, and that's kind of how I've always been. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of explore some of the learnings from Ventures and take them somewhere new, but also hop onto some other series and just see where my mind takes me.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there. I mean, mixing different styles is definitely something I'm into as well, and it's something I kind of struggled with. Like, should I just stick to some, a particular look and feel and go with that? But I don't think that's me. So, I'm kind of finding my way there as well. And this is a hugely successful collection, what is it about this that you think makes it so successful, Ventures?
I think just like, for me, stylistically, I think a sense of minimalism works it helps organize my mind, like I don't need to go crazy X particles maximal, like kind of design look. Like some of that feels a little messy. Like it's awesome for like us motion graphics guys who are like, whoa, that's like super hard to do. But yeah, I think people identify with that kind of like minimalistic exploration. And then also, I don't know, like I like it because it helps me organize my kind of mind. I think a lot of people might imagine themselves as the small figure, like, and really enjoy that sense of scale. Also enjoy the glow and the atmospheric kind of settings, just look wise, But I think like, and then what kind of knowing like the ethos of the series, when people know that, I think a lot of people identify with that in the crypto space, or because you have a lot of like young entrepreneurs or young artists or people that are really taking that kind of like that leap for themselves. So I think there's an identity that you can find very directly with a lot of people for the meaning of the series and kind of maybe why they might buy it. So I don't know. I'm always flattered by people who like and enjoy and want to purchase my work. I don't fully know why sometimes. I'm just kind of rolling with it, but yeah, I don't know. And I'm also lucky that I have like a bunch of cool friends and stuff like that who support and get my work out there. So
yeah, so that's nice. That's there's something that I can't kind of pinpoint is like how do you price a piece like this, because it's a collection. How do you go about that? Is it something that do you have a conversation with somebody who wants to collect it, or is it just something that you set?
It's kind of like I kind of try to set stuff at a price point that is a little bit cheaper than my floor a lot of times, because I want people to have like an upward potential trajectory, so I want people to, at least if you buy something off the primary on a collection, to have you be able to sell that potentially, even if it's just for a little bit more or the same kind of price. I think only one's left on primary, which was supposed to be a whitelist, but the guy, I mean, 0.69 ETH is not what it used to be. So I think he's struggling for it. But yeah, so there's one left on primary. That's at 0.69. I think the average sale price of the series is like 0.9. So you're getting it below the average sale price of the series. And that's kind of what I look more at, So I kind of try to keep respect to people that have bought the work at similar prices, but also try to want to allow for upward kind of like resale potential. So yeah, that's a big part of my pricing model. Like I would feel weird. I mean, floors are difficult for everybody to upkeep, but I think I know, especially also from doing freelance work, like and stuff like that. Like I kind of know the value of my time. I know how long the piece took. I also know the value of the market. So we're trying to calculate all those different things. And I think like, yeah, I mean, like if I was trying to sell the highest point of the ventures kind of series, it's like, I'm not going to say like, yo, come purchase my work for like 2.5 to 3.5 ETH. Like, that's like no one's like that. You're selling to like 10 people at that point. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah. And so I'm not at the stage yet where I want my work to still be attainable. For most, even though it is still kind of expensive, I don't want to price out everybody. And I also don't think the market's really called for that yet. So yeah, just kind of rolling with it. That's a huge discussion. I mean, dude, so many artists there's so much of this pressure around pricing. And I think it's really, honestly, it's up to the artist, but I don't think like, I don't think it needs to be as stressful as people make it sometimes. Like I came into the space and sold my first work for like $800, and I was stoked. I was like, woo, like this is dope. Like that's like a full day of like freelance work. It's like about 800 to like $1,000, and I'm like, oh, cool, free day work. This is dope. And I had no shame in that. Like now it's like I see people come into the space now and like really need their work to be like, oh shit, I just need to sell for 1 ETH. And it's like, well, have you sold anything yet? And like, no, I haven't sold anything yet. Well, then why like just let the market do its thing, get in some collectors' hands. Like, Plain Arts did that, I think, for a lot of people, really exposed a lot of new collectors to a bunch of different artists, and it was like 0.13 to mint, so
for 2
yeah. And that like not being too precious about your value, like as an artist, like can really open you up to new collectors. And if people like your work, there's a good chance some of those collectors that buy in early will make flips or make good trades or do whatever in their own personal life, and then have a decent amount of coin to keep on reinvesting in you as you rise up. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's up to the artist what you want to price your work at, but there is no shame in selling your work for like $800. That's a lot of money for a lot of people, Well,
yeah. It's especially, if you, like you say, if you're just, coming into this, coming in with essentially nothing. So, but I guess, it's smart that you price it based on some real kind of considerations, like, like the value of your time. And that's something that you, learn from being freelance and things like that. And also I just wanted to circle back to something, because the kind of PDF that you write, the thing that you put out, so that's partially to kind of solidify your thought process, or is it just to and sort of to start a kind of dialogue with a collector, or what is the main reasoning for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all of the above. Yeah, it helps me organize my kind of thoughts around the collection and the series. Like, I think actually writing stuff down,
like a brief, like almost.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's what I do a lot, like freelance wise. I mean, I used to do more design stuff, and now I do kind of more like creative direction and kind of consulting. So I do a lot of pitch decks. And what's good about that is like it helps you organize your mind. It makes everything kind of clear and concise and like a pretty package. I think it also kind of holds yourself accountable for what you kind of plan to do with the series, and what your intentions are. Mm-hmm. So I think and it's an easier way to do that. I think it's a more detailed way to do that than me making like a promo video. And I could make a website too. I probably will make a website for Ventures before it all wraps up. But yeah, I mean, the deck is cool too, because it can evolve. You can constantly make edits to it. You can constantly make a new version. You can send that out again, like as the whole thing evolves. But yeah, it's good for a bunch of different reasons. Yeah, it's good for helping me organize my thought, but then it's also a great like marketing kind of tool to send out to collectors, to send out to the public, to get like a better sense of what they might be investing in. Like, I think we're asking people, we're just talking about pricing, like we're asking people for a decent amount of coin, so I really try to treat it as such. I'm not really in the, I don't know. I feel like the collectors and our supporters deserve a little bit more than just like one tweet and buy my work, so
Right.
that's a little bit why, but yeah.
So you would put these out on Twitter or something like that, or do you share them directly with past collectors? What is it, or is it just more of a general kind of, where could people find the Ventures one, for example?
Yeah. Well, yeah, probably on my old, if you scroll down on Twitter long enough, you'll find it. But yeah, I send them out to collectors. I don't cold call collectors ever. If you collect my work, then I'll hit you up. I'll wait for people to ask me. I'm not going out to like people that I have no connection with and just showing my stuff. So that's not a part of that.
Doesn't really work.
Yeah, I mean, it would be annoying. People even do that to me, like, and it's just like, I feel awkward. Like, thank you for thinking about me. Like, I appreciate what you're doing. I wish you the best of luck. But that's just not really the stage I want to set for a new relationship with the collector. So I'll send them to like existing kind of collectors that like I know, and a lot of them that I'm in contact with. And then I'll also put it out there on the internet, which I think is a better way for new collectors to find you. I'll go through the homie threads and we all kind of like help each other kind of retweet stuff and pump, like, kind of how it works. It's kind of like that artist group pick you up mentality. And then like, if that tweet blows up, people will see it and hopefully find a new collector.
For sure. Yeah. I feel like kind of some of that really happened, around the launch of Playing Arts. And I mean, it seems, I think we're going to come back to some of your works and talk about those in a bit, but it seems like a nice sort of segue to talk about your card and the project in a way. So we have the 8 of Clubs. This is an interesting one because it is a bit of a departure from, some of this is a bit more organic, like, compared to some of your other works. So you want to just talk through the card a little bit and explain your thought processes to this? I love the iridescent material, by the way, and the subtle light effects that you have there.
Thank you. Yeah. So this one, I titled it The Bubble. This is actually an older piece. I picked this piece because this, I actually made this pretty much the moment that I got into crypto. So I bought my first Bitcoin and Ethereum, not full Bitcoin at the time, but little chunks, June 2017. And this was actually made in June 2017. And I thought that was kind of ironic that that's this bubble shape, and so many people have say crypto is a bubble. So many people say the NFT space is a bubble. So many people said so many emerging technologies are bubbles, and I picked this piece specifically because this was kind of when in our space, we were kind of having this big kind of summer run up of NFTs and a lot of speculation, a lot of stuff coming in. And I wanted to do something that really just kind of vibed with that in a more lighthearted kind of way. And yeah, just really kind of captured that, like the mood of like, we're in a bubble, but like a lot of bubbles, they bend and they move, they shift around. But I don't think this is one that we're going to ever really fully pop, and I really wanted that kind of, just to make that kind of statement. Also, like I knew like there was going to be, I think like 150 mints of this. And like, I knew like, I don't even think I have 150 works out there on the market, and I was like, so I want to do something that was unique and different, and kind of out of respect to like the Simpler Times collectors or the Ventures collectors, where it's like, I didn't want to just add another 150 of one of those main series into the collection. So I want to do something unique and then do something that kind of, for me, correlated with the time and the moment. So that was a big factor. And I think it's cool. I'm actually really interested to see how like these kind of things age, like because they are so unique to my portfolio. And I think they're really, really unique in general. Like, so like if you zoom out in like 50 years, it's like, oh, there's this one work from Ryan that's totally different than anything else he ever minted. Like I'm interested, like on a market standpoint, like how that kind of ages. I'm super glad it's out there. Like, to be honest, like so stoked that it's out there. Because it's just that, like, that different part of my kind of portfolio, and it was a lot of fun. Like, honestly, like this, just being a part of this project was a lot of fun. Like, like we went through like a whole bunch of different phases and stuff.
It was.
It turned out really good though.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I have some questions from the community, and so one of them from Puskas is. Excuse me if I don't say any names correctly as well. Sorry. But what's your favorite playing arts card? And we can give you a little memory jog.
Yeah, give me that memory jog. I'm gonna
scroll to the top and then we'll come down again just slowly. I
love Rio as a human being. He's so cool. Got to meet him in New York for a little while. He's like so awesome. So love everything Rio does. Leonard's work's super dope. Oh man, my favorite. This is tough. Leonard's work is super dope. I think like he's always been in Velvet Spectrum, also super dope. Yes. Oh gosh, this is going to be difficult.
We're not even halfway through, man. We're just scrolling.
Love Fez, love Rodrigo. Mark is a stud. Like, oh yeah, super love Mark's work. Yes. I feel like we had this kind of come up at the same time in the NFT space. So his stuff is awesome. Kid 8's hilarious. David's awesome. Love David. Josh is super cool. And I feel like it's really cool, like scrolling through this, because a lot of these people I would kind of consider like my friends, like in the space. That's Tim's awesome. Love that. I think I can't even, like, Mr. Binsane might be my favorite one. Yeah. That might be my favorite card. I just think it's super rad. I mean, I love like kind of like illustrated work, and I think I love it so much because I don't do it. Like, it's not my style, so I really gravitate towards kind of these like kind of more illustrative styles. And I really enjoy the color palette and just the vibe that I get initially off of that, especially for a Joker card. It kind of has very much of a, or I guess not the Joker, it's the Jack, but I just,
it could be a Joker that card though, really, but like, it's a Jack. That's awesome. I mean, it's a great card, very popular one. I think I mean, like, when we're just, there's so much
awesome.
There's such a variety, isn't there? Yeah. Did you manage to mint any of these, or did you collect your own card?
I haven't. I haven't collected my own card. I don't necessarily want to collect my own work out of like principle. Yeah. That's just like a weird like principle kind of thing that I've done. But I've collected like I think even some of like this art like off, like these artists not even on Plain Arts. So like I a lot of these guys I consider friends. So it's pretty rad to see everybody get together. I think that's really the core of this. Like, when people look back in like 5-10 years or whatnot, they're gonna be like, wow, look at like this kind of like Rolodex of OGs in the space. It's I don't know. I think it's also the timing too. Like, I don't know if it's going to be that easy to get that level of talent together all in one project really ever again on a collective project, So it will be interesting. It will be interesting to see, I think, in general, how a lot of the projects from this year kind of like age. And I think this one has a super good chance to age really, really well because just of the amount of sheer talent in it and kind of catching it before I think a lot of people really, really, really blew up,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. There's, I mean, well, actually, do you have, just generally speaking, do you have a favorite artist? And it doesn't have to be crypto. It could be a, traditional artist.
Motion graphics wise, like, I mean, Ashthorpe, probably like most Ashthorpe fanboy.
Awesome,
G-Monk, who I've been lucky enough to be like kind of close with now, like was also a massive influence. Who else? Yeah, a lot of people. I mean, yeah, a lot of that older guard. That's like probably a generation older than me, half generation older than me. I've always looked up to them. I think. Other than that, I mean, there's so many people that I just really enjoy their art, and I mentioned on our tapes, but yeah, I would put yeah, definitely G Monk and Ash as probably the top kind of top guys for at least my digital art kind of stuff. Love Beeple too, but Beeple's more of like this influential cultural figure, and I think more of like even like less on the art side. I like Beeple's art, but I really like the way that he's just handled himself career wise. Like really starting to do the open source thing from back and then trend set the whole NDAs thing. Like I think just he's just such an interesting kind of character in the space, even outside of his art. So I have a lot of respect for that, the generation that really came before me, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a testament to, and it kind of echoes what you were saying earlier about how personal work, the things that you're kind of just doing in your spare time, essentially for free or for learning, just to better yourself, ends up being the most profitable things that you can create, and they just really give you that launch pad, So
yeah. And oddly enough, all those guys were people that were saying that, like, we're really like some of the main people, really kind of preaching like on their different kind of avenues, whether it was at conferences or whether it was on their podcast to really do that, before there was even like a lane for profit to do it. So huge shout out to all those and so many others. It's just really fun being involved in the space and even knowing like a lot of the people now. So crazy times.
Yeah, very, very cool. Let's just touch on, before we go back into your art, let's just touch on collectibles and and specifically Bored Apes. This is you. This is kind of your identity online. Did you mint this, or did you get it on secondary?
I got it the day after. The day after
it sold out.
Yeah, and it was like I kind of heard murmurings about it, like really that night before I went to sleep. They were sold out. Like, woke up and people were even more excited. And basically hopped on, saw. I don't know. It was interesting. It was like I hopped on OpenSea and saw the collection and just saw everybody's like vibe to it. And I just kind of like initially just kind of like the vibe. Like I don't know, like scrolling through a couple of them, I was like, oh, these are cool. And they weren't like crazy priced at the time. Like, I think I got my first one for 0.22. I got another one for like 0.24. I got that one for 0.4, the Astro for 0.4. And then I got one last one for 0.57. And then at that point I was like, wow, I've just spent way too much money on JPEGs of apes. What am I doing with my life? Like I was like, that was a bad financial decision, but a lot of fun. And yeah, that led to kind of like the next couple of days were some of the most fun days I had kind of on the internet. The next like 2 or 3 days pre-Meebit launch were some of the most fun days I had like kind of on the internet. It was just because I feel like that project really filled like a void of people that didn't get into CryptoPunks, but were kind of around the space for a little bit. And I think we're the first ones to really do like a cool project that didn't feel like it was a straight pixelated ripoff of the CryptoPunks, and kind of had its own uniqueness to it, had its own cool website, had a roadmap, had like all these things that like now have been copied again and again and again and again, including all the traits that are involved.
Yes.
But so I think like when I look back at like the Bored Apes, it was really just that kind of vibe that I got. And I haven't bought really much of any other collectibles. I really just try to buy some art from friends, not here and there, that I don't really plan to flip or sell. But that was like the one exception. And I think I wish I would have got like Cool Cats or Toads or a couple other projects now that had similar vibes. But I think that's kind of like the vibe and energy that I'm looking for. It passes both like the just like, oh, I like it test, and then also this larger kind of like social community kind of vibe. I mean, community gets like overused, I think, as a term, but it's really just that network, like that network reaction that happens when everybody, for whatever reason, just likes the same thing. You can see with songs, you see with movies, you see with TV shows. Like And I think you also see it with these kind of collectible projects too at times. And I think that's like a really awesome thing to be a part of. And now we have a chance to have equity in that. So there's a really interesting dynamic at play there as well.
Yeah, for sure. Now it's looking like a very smart decision to buy that.
Very lucky decision.
Yeah.
Very, very, very lucky decision. But yeah, no, I'll probably sell the Astro, to be honest. I'll sell it. That's a lot of money. I ain't got it like that. I've had a very blessed year and a very blessed last couple of years, but I mean, dude, like that.
You did a poll, didn't you, on Twitter to say like, I have a cheetah, I have an Astro, like which one should I? And like, I was like, well, I was looking at them and I was like, well, there is something about like, that Astro is kind of you everywhere. So it's kind of like, well, what would you become next? And
you go back to my black and white logo. That's what I go back to.
Yes.
Thing that I made.
But I guess there's also some kind of like what's the word? Cachet to the cheetah gang as well. So
oh yeah. Well, the cheetah was my first ape that I ever got. That was my first purchase.
Oh, that's interesting then. So yeah, that's probably a factor, or do you not hold it in that?
Yeah. I mean, I like that it was my first one. I vibe with the aesthetic a lot. I also love my Astro too. That was like one that I was like super stoked to grab. I remember when I like saw it on the board, I was like, oh, it was like just above floor, and like I just felt super lucky to grab it. And yeah, I mean, that's been a super lucky decision. But yeah, no, I think like the reason why I like the Bored Apes and the reason why I use it as my profile picture now is because it feels very much a part of the time, and I want to like understand the NFT space as it grows and as it evolves. So I think for me, like wearing a PFP, and especially wearing a PFP that's now become such a prominent project, has really been a really cool experience. Like more than just like the monetary kind of value, or just like the I don't really think it's like as much of like a brand exercise as me. As more it is like exploring what the space has to offer and how that feels. You know, like it's a learning kind of experiment for me. But I think eventually, I'll go back to my own kind of brand. And I'm an artist, so I think like a lot of people aren't necessarily following me because I'm like the hugest ape community guy or whatever. Because I'm not really. I'm like rarely on the Discord. I'll retweet like a big sale or like big announcements, but I wouldn't say I'm like by any means like the most heavily evolved, but yeah, I think it's cool just to see how these new kind of bits of the internet and bits of culture kind of like feel when you put them on. So yeah, that's why I love my ape. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting to, it doesn't have to be an ape; it could be like any kind of project or whatever. But if you kind of get into one, it's a way of understanding NFTs and why, like why there's a huge question, like why, and by having this kind of ownership of something and then being part of a community and things like that kind of helps to the understanding. And I guess in the case of apes, there was also the kind of commercial rights and all that kind of stuff, which is like a little bonus and stuff, which people have obviously people have taken advantage of. But I think it's just a general comment, like, you could jump into anything and just kind of get a sense of that. And it's also kind of helps people probably become better educated in this in crypto, in the space as well,
Totally.
What is, what's the most important thing to you as an NFT artist?
I think it's a mix, I think like for me, creatively, it's to really take this opportunity to be able to push my own art and hopefully push it into a sustainable kind of long-term career. It's not just a digital artist or not just a motion graphics artist or a creative director, but like as just like an artist, and I think like hopefully see my style evolve through that and keep on kind of pushing that, like I don't feel like yet that I'm at the point where I'm like I've done all that I can do with my career. I think there's still a lot of upside there, some of which I don't even know what it will be yet, but I want to keep pushing. I want to keep kind of chasing this weird kind of feeling. I think a lot of creators probably have this kind of similar thing. It's like you don't necessarily know the exact reason why you need to create, but you know that you're gonna, and you wouldn't have it any other way. Like, yeah, it's not that like I need to do it, or it's just that like I have to, you know. So I'm curious how that kind of like evolves out with my work and in my career and stuff like that. But then on the more kind of community based side, like I've been lucky. We used to do a lot of like these clubhouse rooms and got to onboard a lot of artists, got to make a lot of connections. And I really hope to lift others up in the space and really kind of give people a little bit of exposure through the small platform that I have, or the small kind of network that I have, and really usher in creative talent from all aspects and all areas and all disciplines into the space. I think that that's like a huge kind of standing goal of mine. I wouldn't say I'm like a massive kind of community builder, like at scale, but I think like I can bring and have a lot of hopefully help and influence on kind of smaller kind of groups, you know, groups of like 30 or so, you know, and really evolve with those people and bring more people in that way. And yeah, really just push people up, you know, bring people up along for the ride. And if they're into it, then yeah, that's awesome. If they're not, then hey, that's cool too.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome, dude. I think that's a really, a really cool kind of mission or whatever of such, you know, to kind of have. And I think it's probably, I think I want to get back to some of your art as well, because there's a whole collection that we haven't talked about, or we've touched on, but we haven't talked about yet. And that is the Simpler Times collection that we have here on Maker's Place. And some of these, you know, well, this one has a bit of animation, but for the most part, they're these kind of like statues that you've put in these really almost futuristic kind of environments. Or, I mean, do you want to just talk through this whole collection?
Yeah, so Simpler Times is kind of like an exercise of mixing kind of like past, present, and future. So these kind of the whole collection kind of came. Man, I mean, there's so many different kind of like avenues and so many influences, but it really came from taking at the time I started this back in 2017, and at that time there's a trend where people would just kind of grab scans of sculptures, you know, which there's a couple scan libraries that scan the world that have these classical sculptures, and they would just kind of slap a marble texture on them and render it, and be like, well, how'd they do that? But I think a lot of us knew like that was there were scans, you know. But and so I thought that trend was interesting. I knew that I didn't want to copy that trend. I want to do something different. So I downloaded a couple of the models, and I thought it was really interesting. Like at that time, like just I think this series is really another really natively digital kind of series, because it felt like here I get to actually hold essentially these artworks from the past, you know, that are scans, like that are physical objects scanned into like kind of the metaverse, you know, kind of this like 3D kind of environment. And I wanted to transport them into the future in their raw kind of like state. Like I'm like imagining like this thing kind of being transported like from the real life into the digital, and how that bakes down into like this really kind of condensed low poly form. And that's kind of the idea of like kind of where Simpler Times came from. And it's kind of has that like that throughput of past, you know, we're taking an actual kind of object, a piece of artwork from the past, reinventing it, like baking it down to its like core kind of geometric digital kind of frame and like in form, and then transporting that form into a more futuristic kind of artistic take on the environment and making it something unique to itself, and almost unrecognizable in some sense, unless if you're like super familiar with it. Like, and a lot of the writings I'll have it is, but really help transport that piece from past to the present to the future, and this cool kind of like relationship. I think that we'll probably see more and more and more in the digital space as more and more of us get dive deep into the metaverse. So yeah. That's kind of the ethos of it.
Very cool. Do you have a favorite piece from here? We're using this one for our artwork, which is just awesome.
Yeah.
But
people
go on.
really like thought Oh, sorry, man. Yeah, people really like Thought. I think because it's got the primary color vibe. Um, I Man, favorite stuff. I mean, I like a lot of them in just different kind of times. I really like the one that's called The Collector. That's a really awesome one. Yeah, that one's, I think, super rad. Yeah, this one's kind of one of my favorites. I really like.
There's also a little story bit, to each one as well, isn't there? So, just a little comment a little commentary on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to write.
How important is it to you to have, something, that sort of tells the story of the piece?
I think this has kind of become like part of the series. I try to, and that's kind of like the present moment of this kind of like story too. Yeah, I try. So like a lot of these kind of came from, this was the first kind of like early spring, like winter kind of is when I was making the series. So kind of when we had that first kind of wave. So it's just kind of like stories of short little stories of I feel like of figures or what people were going through at the time. So that's what the story of like Collector is, and try to keep them short. Try to keep them like 3 sentences, like quick little 1 second, like what is this person doing, or like what's their MO, followed by kind of information on the sculptor, and then finish it up with something too. But yeah, so the stories are fun. I mean, it's really become a kind of a part of the series to me. And also it's cool because like you sit with these pieces for a long period of time, and it's like you get to put yourself through like the thought process of like what is this figure going through, kind of,
yeah.
And yeah. So
I think it's great series.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I love it. I mean, it's kind of like, it's my longest running series. I mean, it's 4.5 years old. That's really why there's so many of them. Like now, like it seems like there's a lot, but really like that's 4.5 years worth of work. And yeah, I'm going to try to keep it going. I don't really have like a definitive end date on that. I think I'm running out of scan library assets that I can use, and then I'm excited to kind of push that series outside of the libraries and actually go and collect some of these scans on my own, and kind of expand the series that way. And yeah, so I love that series, man. I mean, that's really been like, it's been such like a grounding series, and I typically like take breaks from it too. Like I have my last drop of this year on Maker's Place on the 14th, which will kind of round out this leg of the series. And then I'll probably take like 8 months or so off from it. And I tend to like to do that. It's because it's hard. It's kind of like, it's more work than I think people realize, to try to find the right pieces and kind of build it up. And yeah, I think it's something that I like to give a little bit of break to, because then I can see like this evolution when you come back to it. I see like very distinct kind of like blocks of and points of the series. So yeah, man. So I don't know. I love it. That's my next drop. So if anybody wants to get in on that at Maker's Place, 12/14. Yeah, sorry for the show, but someone's got to do it.
Yeah, no, you got it. That's totally valid. So yeah, you're taking a break from that, then you move on to a different piece. Like, so you're typically kind of working on, or at least thinking about, a few different pieces at any one time, or and then when you say taking a break, like, do you actually ever take a complete break from art, or is it something like, because you did talk about like the need for creating as well. So like, do you have to be creating constantly?
I mean, I can take like small breaks, but I mean, really, as long as it goes is like maybe like 5 days ish or something. Like, it's not that long. I wish I could take longer. I just don't want to. Like, I get to a point where like I just don't know what else I really actually want to do. Like even like when I'm on vacation, sometimes it's like I don't necessarily want to just be on vacation sitting at a pool. Like, I actually want to be. I can be very active minded. But I do take breaks in between certain series, though. Like, I do let certain kind of like lanes take a break, and kind of switch gears and expand onto others. And yeah, I do that, kind of to I think it helps. I mean, a lot of that like comes, I think, from me doing kind of commercial work earlier in my career a lot, and you always switch up styles. So I think it helps progress my design skills and art kind of skill set and toolbox, from both like trying to do something new creatively and also skill wise, like of new techniques and stuff that I can throw in. And I think and nowadays it's almost even nicer because it just like adds to the scarcity to a series, or so I think like that's just kind of naturally built in, and I want to really be in a mindset when I'm making this stuff, and not just trying to pump stuff out because I feel like it needs to sell, but like really be in the right mindset to make the series the way that I want it to, and have every work be kind of really thought out and really special. And I mean, like, to your point, like I think like a lot of stuff that I do has been, it kind of floats in my head for a while before it gets actually acted upon. I mean Ventures was like that. I kind of had the idea to do Ventures like for 6-8 months before I even started the series. Like I kind of knew what I wanted to play around with. I didn't really fully go on to do it. I had done some earlier experiments like from years back of kind of similar, like pretty much similar setups, but yeah, it didn't really fully take form until well later on. And there's other series in the future that are kind of like that too. But I like to take little breaks in between styles for sure.
Yeah, you're across various platforms, and to me at least, it seems like you have specific platforms. This piece will go here, and this piece will go here, and I will use a platform like, well, it was Hen, but to put a particular collection on there too, and so you're mixing it up, and it kind of allows people to explore like these different platforms and kind of hunt around a bit to find your work. And is that all by design?
Yeah. I mean, it's also like just me trying to figure out what this technology has to offer. Like, I think for me, I'm lucky. I kind of had these series that were kind of tailor made for NFTs even before they're NFTs. So like, I was able to kind of have this library of kind of series going into the space and have this room to kind of experiment in kind of what I consider year one. And so, yeah, I really like, just from like a technology and user experience type of mentality to kind of play around with these different platforms. I started on Maker's Place, so pretty much all of my earlier work was on Maker's Place from back in the early days. I have some work on Foundation, which kind of came out of that period. But yeah, a lot of that was just like, what does Foundation have to offer? And this is kind of like, some of this is kind of like the pre-Ventures work. So this was some experiments that predate Ventures, but kind of, you can tell like similar vibes and kind of have this cave kind of landscapey kind of stuff. So that felt like a good place for that. And then Hen at the time, now it's object.com, was really great for I think mechanic exploration. Like my first drop on that was called Nihilist, and kind of had this setup where it was going to be four works, but you had to kind of like play this game to like, it was multiple like props from different works, or multiple variations from 4 different works. So you had to collect either one of the 3 one of ones, or all of the 1 of 10s, or all of the 1 of 20s, to get what I would consider what I called hodler rewards. So if you collected all of these kind of runs, you would get specific like hodler rewards, which ended up being the yellow ones. And yeah, so it was really cool to explore just kind of dynamics, and also like, I feel like you can play at scale easier on Hen than you could on ETH, both from like a price point kind of thing, but also just like, I mean, really it all comes down to price point, because you can get more collectors because it's cheaper, and you can mint more because it's cheaper. So you get to play with like dynamics at scale, and that was a lot of fun. And just really like, I think like Tezos is my experimental kind of part of my kind of library, and that is awesome. I mean, it's awesome that we have that, and from like a creative standpoint, and it's also awesome that people can get exposure to my work without needing to spend $1 trillion. So like the C Block, this is two of like what I would consider like probably the earliest. This actually I think is the earliest pre-ventures like experiment with that same kind of vibe. Like it's pretty much the same setup but less refined. The atmosphere wasn't really dialed in. The displacer kind of cave texture setup wasn't really dialed in. But this is like the earliest kind of what I was saying before is like a lot of times I'll have ideas in my mind that don't fully take form until years later. And that's kind of like what C Block and Odd Days kind of are on the Hen collection. And I think a lot of people have mentioned that they wanted like adventures, but I mean the cheapest ventures now is $3K. So it's like, okay, well maybe I'll do these larger editions of stuff that's not officially in the series but has like the same vibe. It's a little older, a little rough around the edges. I think those are like rendered at a lower resolution. I think those are only like a little under 2K ish, where like pretty much every Ventures is 5K. But you still get exposure, and you get exposure for $100 instead of $3,000. So if you really want a piece, Hen's awesome, man. And I collected a bunch of stuff on Hen too, just because it was just like, yeah, it was just so much fun. I really that was kind of like that was good times, man. Good times.
It's kind of like
still good times on Tezos, but still good times on Tezos, but yeah, now it's a little different.
Yeah, I mean even objects, the site just feels a bit like OpenSea in the layout and everything. So I think that's probably by design, just to kind of make it everything. The UI just looks exactly kind of like it, doesn't it? But at least there's a place for and so when Hen sort of disappeared. You were saying that all this stuff just transferred over to object. I guess it's just, how was that process for you anyway? Was it fairly, when you kind of realized that there was no more Hen, what did you kind of initially feel?
Well, I think I was bummed out. Like it's kind of like I think it was another one of those cultural kind of moments, similar to how I described like the Bored Ape Yacht Club like earlier, where it was like this real cool moment in NFT culture that we all kind of got to vibe on and got to play around with. So I think I was bummed, but like I wasn't. I mean, I named my first drop on there. Nihilist was like the first series that I dropped on there. So I kind of knew a little bit of like the potential of what we were getting into. I think it's also like it's interesting because I think Hen's always been a place of exploration and experimentation. And it's interesting because I think like this is going to be a trend that we'll see a lot more in the next decade. I think we're going to see a lot more platforms cease to exist. And the cool thing is it's like this all lives on the blockchain. So it's none of it's platform dependent. And I think like a lot of ETH smart contracts are kind of have perpetual royalties no matter where things are purchased on the secondary. Stuff's really evolved in that kind of way. And I think it's just like Hen was in some ways is always kind of like, kind of a place where that level of experimentation and kind of like weirdness happens. And I think like we're going to see more of that. And it was really kind of like refreshing to see like, oh, okay, yeah, this is actually the use of a blockchain as opposed to the use of just like a platform. Like if Instagram goes down, it's just like, oh shit, like Instagram's down. It's not like it lives on Twitter or it lives on like Snapchat or it lives on like this decentralized social media. It's just like straight up down. But with the blockchain, unless if like something goes wrong with where it's stored on IPFS, it's always there, and I think that was really it was a bummer, but then it was also like, oh cool, like this is like a great like use case of why this tech is valuable at the same time. So the Tezos community is still awesome. I think it will bounce back. I think like a new product will kind of emerge, or maybe people just get used to the object. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's great that someone kind of picked it up the mantle and, carried on with it. So yeah, I think we actually do have some time for some Q&A. So we're going to get to that. And I'm just going to look down here at this. I've got a list of some questions here. I don't know. I haven't read any of these actually. So I'm just going to see if it's any sort of quick fire stuff that we can get through. Shelby we'd like to hear. So as a let's see, is there any creator, artist, or company that you haven't worked with yet and would like to?
Ooh, I mean, I would like to. I'm actually kind of looking forward to getting back into. This is not really a creator company, but just kind of like an area that I'd love to get back into doing more, and that's doing kind of like physical installations at events. I think immersive experiential is really cool, and I think it's going to play a bigger role in the NFT space than people really realize right now. Because I mean, it's really like this. I think it's a way to bridge the metaverse to kind of almost like museum kind of mindset. And yeah, it's just really cool to take stuff in general off of screens, off of conventional screens, and put them onto different canvases. You know, like I get to do like the Coachella Dome projection kind of thing, and like that's basically headsetless VR, which is like such an interesting, cool canvas to play around with. I think you see a lot of other permanent installations. I mean, like Rafik does a bunch with like Art Tech House. I would love to do like an Art Tech House thing. That would be a lot of fun. Yeah, and just kind of really explore that kind of land of digital content, motion graphics, and architecture. I think like that's just like such a place to play around in, and something that I'm actually excited to get into. I did a little bit of it this year. Those projects won't come out until like 2024ish, and then hopefully. But yeah, I really enjoy that space a lot.
Yeah, and are you in that kind of regard? Are you kind of do you have experience with metaverses, and would you want to kind of build your own kind of space and have some kind of?
I think eventually. I think for me though, like I don't think the fidelity is there with where I want it to be yet. And like in general, like, and I think like that's something that I was a little cautious about real time for the same reason. For a while, I think now that's getting better and better and better. But I think for the style of art that I like to do, I like to have it a little bit the fidelity kind of there. I mean, you see like pretty much all of my stuff is rendered at a super high resolution. And I will dive into that stuff, but I don't think I'll be the first to kind of pioneer it. I'll sit back and wait until like I feel like the technology catches up to the art that I want to put in it, if that makes sense. I think it's crazy interesting, and like I'll definitely invest like my time in kind of like just exploring what that has to offer. But I think creatively, I'm not totally into it yet. But I'm sure that will change in the next 2-3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got a perfect kind of series that could continue into metaverse, which imagine like these simpler times, kind of these kind of scans or sculptures are then coming back as come back as sculptures, and they're like these kind of huge pieces that you walk up to, and I think that'd just be pretty awesome just to see. Totally. I think it's quite an immersive thing. So yeah, there's there was a question on this. Did you have a huge sale on one of your simpler times, like 22 ETH purchase? Which piece was that?
Yes.
What's the story? And can you direct me to it just so we can share?
The one below the one that you were just on. It's called Sampler. So it's there it is. Yeah, so Sampler is like look at that big $970 offer on that. Oh no, that was the original sale price, I think, of Sampler, maybe.
Okay.
Way back in the day.
I think there's it's on where does it go to when it's not on? Sorry, I'll scroll down and you can read it. Where does it go? Where does it go to when it's not on? It goes on to OpenSea. Okay, so we should be looking on OpenSea really, but never mind. the artwork's bigger here. So.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. It's crazy that that thing sold for what 100x only like 6 months later, like 6-7 months later. But yeah, Sampler like is I actually don't remember what this was. I like this was an earlier kind of work in the series, and I don't remember what scan I used, but this was kind of like my cover image for the series for a little bit. And basically, so this was like one of my earlier mints, and then I had kind of like a bigger series drop back in late March that got a lot of attention on Maker's Place, and Patty Stash picked it up on secondary for I think 2 ETH and just held on to it. And then I was posting just sometimes I'd post like, which one would you pick, like kind of like do like a display of 4, and for whatever reason that tweet kind of got some traction. And Parallel, the founder of Parallel saw it and said like, I'd ape into this. I really want this piece. And then Patty saw that and like listed it for what he would have sold it for, and Kalos from Parallel hit me up and was like, should I do this? Should I pull the trigger? I'm like, yeah, dude, go for it. And he's awesome. He's an awesome guy too. If you guys follow that series, like they're such a cool team. And yeah, so that was a big kind of like big sale. So, I mean, I hope that momentum kind of carries on to the next round. Right after that, I had my highest, at least cash value kind of sale on Simple Times piece, like almost 10 grand, like high 9s. And yeah, hopefully keep that momentum going. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I'm also nervous. I got some work to do these next couple of weeks. Because like I said, I'll put the series on kind of like a brief hiatus for a little bit. So I really want these last 3 or 4 pieces to kind of be grails, and hopefully keep that momentum going. And yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy that in general, my work sold for almost 100 grand, like that's bonkers to me. The whole space is bonkers to me. I still don't really understand what's going on. I don't think any of us do, but we're just rolling with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah,
that's all we can do. Yeah. That's awesome. And yeah, I think that's such a cool, that's so cool. There's more questions in the chat. And I just think it's probably a good time to wrap up this episode. And allow you to, you can check out those questions and answer them. And it seems like got a very kind of engaged community on this episode, which is awesome to see. And so I want to just I'm just stoked to have had this chat with you, man. I'm really, it's been really great getting to know a bit more about you, Ryan. We got to let people know where they can follow you, but we've got your little Twitter handle there. Do you want to just give a shout out to anywhere else where people should just be checking out your work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm most active on Twitter. Probably go to the Twitter, check the link tree. That kind of will send you pretty much anywhere you want to go. And yeah, just got that Simple Times drop, which will be my next drop on the 14th of December, and then I don't know what I'm going to do. I do know what I'm going to do, but I got a lot of work to do and keep this momentum going. And it's been a wild ride already. And just thanks everybody for hopping on and listening to me ramble for the last hour and a half. I really appreciate that. I hope you got some value out of it. And Andy, thank you for having me on. Vlad, thank you so much for having me a part of this project from the get-go. Just really looking forward to the future of what's next and seeing you guys around the NFT Twitter and whatnot.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone who is a regular here will know that they can claim an exclusive POAP for being part of this episode here on Discord. So I'm just going to take a little snapshot of who's here, and then we'll know who can have one. And then what we can do is just come back and just say, back to you, Ryan. Thanks so much. Thanks to our community. Thank you so much for everybody for really engaging. I'm sorry if we didn't get to ask all the questions. There's actually more than I thought. But hopefully Ryan will stick around for a little bit just to answer them right here in the Discord. So yeah, thanks again, Ryan. I'm Andy Needham, and I'll see you all in another episode of the Playing Arts Podcast. Bye.
Bye.